Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and I am so excited to be celebrating 10 years of meaningful conversations with you. As we step into our new primetime hour, it's such an honor to share this exciting new chapter with you. For over a decade, Moments with Marianne radio show has featured dynamic conversations with both indie and New York Times bestselling authors, business leaders, celebrities, mind, body, spirit experts, visionaries, lifestyle experts, and brands you need to know about. So whether you're starting your day out, headed to work, or listening from wherever you are, this hour is designed to bring you thoughtful dialogue, fresh insight, and inspiring stories so you can make every moment count. So thank you for being here with me today, and let's dive in. We're here today with special guest, Cody Cook-Parrott, who's here to share with us the new book, The Practice of Attention, Cultivating Presence in a Distracted World. So what if the biggest thing standing between you and the life you want is where your attention goes each day? Well, today's guest is here to dive into just that. Cody Cook-Parrott is a writer and artist who facilitates a weekly writing group called Landscapes and teaches classes about writing, quilting, and creative practice. Cody's work has been featured in the New York Times, Vanity Fair, Dance Magazine, The Huffington Post, and many more. So welcome to the show, Cody Cook-Parrott.
Thanks so much.
Well, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. What inspired you to write this?
I have really struggled with Instagram addiction for many, many years. And I was talking to a lot of other artists and musicians and writers who also were struggling with Instagram addiction. And I thought, I think we need a book about it to talk about what's happening, how it's fracturing our attention, and what to do about it.
So what were some of the markers that were like, okay, I'm not just spending a little time on Instagram or social media, any social media just to have fun. I'm actually in a place where I need to look at this deeper.
A lot of friends noticed, and I noticed this with myself as well, an inability to read for very long. So trying to read fiction, nonfiction, just not being able to get through very many pages at a time and just feeling like, okay, I can't read anymore. And I used to be an avid reader as a child. And so I really noticed that. And the other thing was just my relationships, just noticing strains in my relationship from just staring at my phone when a partner or a friend would try to talk to me or have a deep conversation. I would just kind of be looking at my screen, and that was really a problem.
I think so many people can relate with that in one degree or another, but it's interesting how that is really designed to suck us in and keep us there.
Yes, when my friends say, "I think I'm addicted to my phone or social media," and and they feel a lot of shame and embarrassment, and I remind them these apps and these phones are designed to steal our attention and to hook us in and keep us there. And so I offer that to anyone listening today, that giving yourself some gentleness as you're kind of trying to unhook from the addictive, extractive platforms.
Well, I really like how in your book you draw these parallels between digital distraction and addiction. How did that comparison become clear for you?
I've been sober since 2011, and so I have a lot of experience with not betraying myself and staying true to what I need to stay true to, which for me is not putting alcohol in my body. And when I was getting sober, when I was 22, I really noticed that I would try to negotiate. So I would be like, okay, I'll only drink beer, or I'll only drink on Wednesdays, or, I won't drink before 4, or I won't drink in the morning. I had all of these little tests that I would do, and I broke all of them. And that was part of why I decided to quit drinking. And it was the same with social media for me, or even using my phone. Like, I'll only log in on Thursdays, or I'll only post once a week, and I won't look at the comments. And it was just so much negotiating. And so that's why I tell people, if you're negotiating a lot, it might be time to take a break. So it might be time to do a digital detox or delete it entirely, whatever feels most aligned.
I think some people kind of got a little anxious when you said delete it entirely.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
So, what would a detox start to look like? Because I think for some people, they're like, okay, let's start with baby steps on this in case it is something that I need to delete entirely.
Definitely. For me, a digital detox could mean 1 hour without my phone, 30 minutes without my phone. Like, I love that you said baby steps. It doesn't have to be a full week off Instagram or social media. It doesn't have to be a month off social media. You can really just start to experiment. One thing I love to do is keep my phone out of the bedroom at night. So I always tell people, one small thing you can do is get yourself an alarm clock, because so many of us are using our phones as our alarm clocks. And so it's hard to imagine having it outside of our bedroom, but you can do it. I believe in you. And so that, like, nighttime without my phone is really important to me. Even though I don't have social media anymore, I can still get hooked into text messages, communicating with friends, which I do love doing. But at night, I really like to wind down and not have a screen in front of my face and do some reading. So, experimenting with times that you're not on your phone, and experimenting with times you might take breaks from social media.
So, I want to dive into the word attention and what that truly means beyond focus or productivity. Can you share that with us?
To me, attention is a prayer, it's noticing, it's devotion, it's going for a walk and looking out and noticing what birds are in the trees. It is a nice afternoon tea with a friend. To me, attention is really just calling in mindfulness and deciding what it is that we let into our aura, our psyche, our vision. So, yeah, but nature is really coming to mind right now. I'm sitting in my office and just looking out into the forest where I live and the ridge, and it's blanketed with snow, and I get so much inspiration just from even looking out the window and seeing what's there.
Well, that sounds so relaxing. I think so many people are like, okay, maybe I need to get outside more.
Yeah.
And it has me kind of thinking. So, when we're in this place where we are using social media and it's distracting us, who really benefits?
Oh, that's a beautiful question, because
Kind of loaded. I know.
yeah,
Sorry.
it is, it's good. You know, I think systems of oppression benefit. The government benefits, big tech benefits, billionaires benefit. The small artists in the world are not who is benefiting. I think they can. I mean, I think when we use social media, we might find small businesses that we really care about, and we might want to spend money with them, and that does help the small business economy, or the local economy if it's someone local. But in general, from like a zoomed out perspective, the billionaires are benefiting from us being addicted to our phones. So,
Enough said. Enough said on that. So, I know that in your book you talk about conducting an attention audit. What does that look like?
so something that's been really important to me over the years, which I borrow from recovery spaces and Healing from codependency is taking an inventory, taking an honest inventory about my time and how I spend it. And, where am I letting spirit or my higher power into my life? And the attention audit is specifically to look at over a week of time, what is happening? Where are you leaking energy? Where are you giving your time away? So that could be on your phone or with other people or with your job, and just keeping track. So we don't judge the attention audit. We don't judge ourselves through it. We're just doing an inventory. We're just fact finding. So later we can look at, okay, I said I didn't have time to volunteer or join a book club or go to the library, but I did say that I was on my phone for 2 hours scrolling the other day. So we just look at it without judgment and try to figure out where we can rearrange some pieces of the puzzle.
I think that's such an important piece. And it has me kind of thinking, when you were on social media, how did that really kind of shape your sense of identity and creativity before you stepped away? What does it look like then and now?
There was a lot of really positive parts of social media. I mean, when you were asking that question, I still feel a little bit of grief having left in some ways because, I had a huge following. I had that fancy blue check mark. I had celebrity followers. I kind of had the account and platform that everybody wants. And yet I was so distracted and so addicted to it that it just wasn't worth it anymore. And so, in some ways, being on it, I felt connected to other artists and I liked getting some radical news that way. I think that's another way that social media can really benefit those that are most marginalized and most vulnerable is it's a really fast way to share news that traditional media isn't always covering. But at the same time, I could fall into rabbit holes of looking at the news for too long and that being stressful and causing a lot of anxiety. So now I try to just dedicate about 1 hour a day to updating myself about what's happening locally, globally, nationally, and connect with artists in other ways, reading their newsletters, reading their books, texting them. But yeah, there was a time when social media felt exciting and good and inspiring, and it just kind of lost that at some point for me.
I know we've kind of touched on this a couple times, but I do want to dive a little bit more into it. For someone who feels really overwhelmed by their social media, but they're just not in a place where they're ready to say, hey, I'm ready to leave, where do they begin?
I think that you can begin with turning the dial just 1% in terms of making change and also talking about it with other artists, writers, friends, other parents. If you're a parent, just being honest that it's overwhelming to you. I love Cal Newport's book, Digital Minimalism. I think that's a really helpful book to just kind of guide us in terms of how can we be looking at our phones less, our computers less. But yeah, just making small changes and not, I've mentioned this a few times, but just not judging yourself for that overwhelm because of course it's overwhelming. It's like in 2 seconds looking at your phone, it's like war, the Epstein files, new socks, join my online class, listen to my podcast, war. It's like, that's crazy. Like, you see that so fast, and that, of course, that's overwhelming. So I would say to someone like, of course you're overwhelmed. Like, we live in a time where there's so much happening and we have so much access to information. And then the other thing I'll say is like, get a hobby. Get a hobby that's creative, and you will notice that you're on your phone less. So, cooking, knitting, walking, hiking, Pilates, whatever it is, going to the museum, like get out of your house, go outside. Those starting to replace the phone activity with healthy, nourishing activities, you will notice you want to be on your phone less.
And is that what you mean? Because I know in your book you really emphasize rituals over routines. Is that what you're hinting at?
Exactly. I think that routines can feel a little constrictive. Like it's like, I have a routine now. Like I have an exercise routine. Whereas like if you have an exercise ritual, you might feel a little more connected to the earth or nature or spirit, whatever you want to call it. And I find that rituals throughout the day help me feel more devotional rather than disciplined. I do think discipline can be helpful, but I like to say devotion over discipline can help us with these rituals.
In your experience, what do you feel that most people are avoiding when they reach for social media as a distraction?
Yeah, I usually think they're avoiding themselves in some way, and so my suggestion is like get to know yourself. It is safe. It pleases the universe when you learn to love yourself and get to know yourself. I, in the book, I do go through some exercises to help the reader understand what they are avoiding. For me, I didn't do my taxes for 7 years. Dear listener, I do not recommend. But that was a big part for me was like I wasn't solvent with my finances, so I would reach for my phone. So I think it's usually something around financial solvency, a relationship not going well, being stressed about work. Those are just some obvious ones that come to mind. So I think looking within to really ask yourself, what is it that I'm avoiding? And then, you know, not hating yourself for avoiding it, but just noticing that you do indeed go to your phone. And maybe it's time to approach those topics or themes that are coming up with a little bit of bravery.
Did you find that when you went through this practice that you had a difficult time staying in self-love? Because I think it would be really hard for a lot of people because, man, we can get judgy about everybody and especially ourselves.
Absolutely. Self-love and You know, the other side of the same coin of self-love for me is self-forgiveness. And I think that entry point really helped me learn to love myself was I had to forgive myself because I was so judgmental that I hadn't done my taxes in so long. Like I just felt stupid. But it's like I have a dance degree. Nobody taught me how to do my taxes. Nobody taught me how to run a business. Nobody taught me how to deal with numbers. And so forgiving myself for not doing them for so long and then seeing how being honest about it, sharing my story is of service to others and helps others forgive themselves as well.
I think that's such wise advice to look at this not as a punishment, but as something that's benefiting us. So I know we've talked about like attention. How does fractured attention affect our relationships? I mean, we kind of started off with this, but our sense of self, because I think it kind of goes further than most people realize.
Yeah, what comes to mind is that when we're fractured, we're not our whole selves. And it's my hope that we take in beautiful art and documentaries and films and albums and books. And when our attention is fractured, we can't really take in the bounty that is available to us creatively. And we're just looking at little pieces of things all the time on social media, on our phone. And I really want us to take in the beauty that surrounds us in the natural world, in the art world. Whether you're an artist or not, I think engaging with art is so important. And so to me, that fractured self can't really show up fully, both as a receiver and a giver. I think so much about how my own phone addiction has definitely impacted romantic partnerships and friendships, and I'm so grateful that it doesn't do that anymore. But I think that kind of fractured feeling makes for a fractured relationship as well.
I love how in your book you describe reclaiming attention as a radical act of self care and creative resistance. What makes it radical?
I think it's just so normalized to be on our phones all the time. It's just like, everybody's addicted to their phone. And it's like, yeah, and that sucks. I don't want that to be the norm anymore. And I think more and more I'm seeing that it's not. I'm seeing people quit Instagram, quit TikTok, quit YouTube, whatever the, social media or addictive platform of choice is. But it's radical because most people aren't doing it. They are just giving in to their phones. And, at this point, like Meta and a lot of the companies that own these platforms, like I said, are run by billionaires that don't share the same ethics and values that I do. And I want to be in alignment with my values and my politics, where I spend my money and where I put my attention.
So, how can play and creativity and spaciousness help restore just presence in everyday life?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about play as I have been talking about this book so much in the last few weeks, and how, especially if you're listening or if you read this book and you aren't an artist or you don't identify as an artist, to like just start playing. Like, buy a one of those little friendly looms where you can make pot holders, or try a new recipe in the kitchen, or play a new game with your kids or with your dog, or pick a new trail and pretend that you're an adventurer or that you're an herbalist and try to identify the plants along the way. Or if you want to even try writing, I was thinking about myself at age 9 the other day, which is when I really became serious about writing. And I would like pretend I was a novelist. And I'm working on my MFA thesis right now. And I'm feeling that a little bit, like I'm going to pretend that I'm a writer, which is ironic because I have written 6 books and thousands of newsletters, and I am indeed a writer. But sometimes when my brain is like, you're not really a writer or an artist, I can just play pretend. And that is that spaciousness and humor and fun. And I want everyone to add that back into their life. And I am a student of this right now. I am definitely always trying to recalibrate and add more play into my practice and my life.
I think we all can benefit for more play. Life gets way too serious sometimes.
Yes, it does.
Well, and so what role does curiosity play in healing our relationship with distraction?
Curiosity to me feels like a sister to self-forgiveness a little bit. When I'm trying to forgive myself or love myself, instead of making any always never statements, I try to stay very curious and ask questions like, what would it be like if I slept without my phone in the room for one night? Or what would it be like to just deactivate my social media? I don't have to delete it, but maybe I want to deactivate it. Maybe I just want to take the app off my phone for 3 hours, just experimenting, just being gentle with ourselves, staying curious, asking questions. That's really, asking questions is really how curiosity can be implemented into our lives and help us with our creativity, with our play. What would it be like to add sweet potato to my rice bowl tonight instead of avocado? Or in my case, add both, like just asking questions and asking questions to other people. I think there's so much assumption in our world. There's so much black and white thinking. We're so divided as a country in the US right now that, I think of like my own neighbors who have really different politics than I do living in rural northern Michigan. And it goes both ways. We ask each other a lot of questions. We stay really curious about the other person's reasoning for their choices, and it makes for healthy relationships with those who live closest to me, and I'm really grateful for that.
So, to dovetail with that, I think one question that comes to mind is about perfectionism and people pleasing. Oh my goodness. I think there's a lot of people that can identify with that. So, how does that intersection really bring us to a place of inability to stay present?
Yeah, I would say everything I do is really rooted in anti-perfectionism. My quilting practice, my dance practice, my writing practice, my teaching practice. And, anti-perfectionism is an entry point for experimentation in your art, in your life, in your relationships. And it brings us into presence and attention. So for me, it's when I quilt, I don't use a pattern. So I don't use any rules or rulers. And, I might sew something up, a patchwork, and be like, you know what? I'm going to cut this in half and flip it around and sew it back together. And that's exactly how I live my life. If something's not working but is beautiful, that's okay. I can cut it up and rearrange it and flip it around. It's like I really take that mindset and add it to everything else. And it helps me pay attention because I really want to have that noticing practice, that sharp focus of what is happening. Is it beautiful? Is it working for me? And how can I rearrange it if it's not?
And that play that intersects in that, I love that.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, and so for our listeners that are thinking to themselves, so I'm sure there are many, like, how can I minimize this pull towards my screen and have more of a pull towards my life? What is one meaningful shift that they can start experimenting with this week?
I would really love to see more people thinking about how they can be of service, whether that is to a neighbor, to an organization, to a mutual aid fund, just how, because that to me helps us think less about ourselves. And I think we, as a people, just think about ourselves a lot. And I think that's natural. I don't think we need to judge that. But for me, getting out into the community, being with the people, being with my neighbors, asking, what skills do I have that I can offer is really helpful. And that doesn't have to be a big thing. You can even use social media. You could donate $5 to a GoFundMe and share it in your Instagram stories. Like, I'm not anti social media. If you're using it, I think that's great. You can spread a lot of information that way. If you have an email newsletter, if you just want to text a friend and say, hey, this is a mutual aid fund I noticed that for people affected in our area, and I just gave a little bit of money to it, and I'm inviting some friends to do that as well. It could be having a hobby that includes volunteering, but in general, I would say just get out of your own head and see where you can be generous and of service to those most vulnerable.
Well, Cody, you're such an inspiration. Where can people go to learn more about your work and to be part of, I know, your offline community?
Thank you so much. Really, it all lives on my website, www.codycookparrott.com. You can order the book there, The Practice of Attention. You can subscribe to my free newsletter. You can listen to my podcast. You can sign up for my analog newsletter, which arrives at your home in an envelope and includes writing prompts every month. So lots of ways to be in touch and enter my ecosystem. And I would love to hear from people as well.
Well, Cody, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You're listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.